inspiring others is like my outlet. It keeps me encouraged and motivated, and it keeps me grounded. And so I hope that I will always be able to find a way to push through and write, or to share words of encouragement with others. Hello everyone, it's your girl B Nicole, and I'm back with another live. And today's topic of discussion is going to be healing broken relationships and why I believe that healing is more so personal. I did release a blog over the weekend, and it's titled The Day of My Father's Funeral, and I kind of share some pointers and tips there. It says be good to yourself. I don't know if y'all can see it. Hold on, wait, let me step back. It says be good to yourself, inspire others, and that's honestly what I try to do on the daily. I try to be nice to myself, extend myself grace so that I can continue to inspire others, and that my walk in all areas will be inspirational. Yes! I love this filter. Okay, let's go. All right, so healing broken relationships. I'm sharing this topic because, for those that don't know, my father passed away July 13th of this year. And the relationship that we had was, I would say it was somewhat rocky, but not in a negative sense, just simply because there was not a lot of consistency there. And so sometimes that can be discouraging, because you can be applying a lot of effort or going with a lot of high hopes to leave somewhat disappointed of the outcome. So my father has always been somewhat in and out of the picture since the very beginning, honestly. But there were seasons and there were times in my life where he wanted to be more present. He wanted to be more involved. And I honestly think, and I'm not going to get into like the nitty gritty of this, but honestly what I believe is that his relationship with his father was rocky. And honestly non-existent, and that somewhat gave him, I would say, fear about fatherhood. So yeah, I think it caused him to run from his responsibilities, because that seemed to be the easiest thing to do in that sense. So it wasn't until 2016 where I had recently moved to Huntsville and got connected to this church, and the pastor decided that he challenged us to reach out to our parentals, whether the relationship was stable or unstable, and to simply ask them for areas that we could pray for them in, and to give them words of encouragement, and just to be led by the Holy Spirit on the phone conversation. I knew that would be something really easy with my mom to do. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do that. I wasn't really sure how my father would respond to me reaching out and wanting to pray with him, but he was very much so responsive, and he honestly looked forward to those calls. I wanted to start off our call by simply letting him know that I forgive him for not being present, and that I had forgiven him, and that I wasn't holding a grudge towards him. And I wanted him, the only thing I wanted from him was for him to forgive himself, because I recognize that operating with unforgiveness is honestly it's like an unnecessary weight. So it somewhat bogs you down, so you can't really fully operate in purpose because you're holding on to unforgiveness. And in our situation, I had already forgiven him for what he did or didn't do, yet I knew that he had not fully forgiven himself. And I think honestly, the reason why I took his death so hard is because I still don't know if he ever fully forgave himself for being an absent father. So literally the call, we did that for an entire week, and honestly it opened up this chain of communication. And by me being able to by me being able to hear him out and allow him to apologize for him, and also for him to know like where I stood and how I didn't blame him, and that I would hope that he would continue to operate in purpose, and that God will continue to bless him and his family. So let's go ahead and jump into healing broken relationships. So number one, I think it's so important that that you address the issue and not attack the person while doing so. So the issue with my father is simply that he, not only was he an absent father, but even the times that he decided he wanted to pop up on the scene, so he was somewhat in and out of the picture. So there was never any level of consistency, and it made it really hard to trust him in the long haul. So the first thing that you want to do for healing broken relationships is simply address the issue, but choose not to attack the person, and don't even attack their character. So an example would be, is in my case was, it really bothered me how you would be in and out, and it made me less likely to want to reach out, because I never knew if it was going to be a week that you wanted to be in the picture or a week that you wanted to be out of the picture. And then allow the person, of course, to respond to you addressing the issue. But at the end of the day, you want to, of course, make progress, and you can't make progress by attacking the individual. Number two is that you have to own your truth. And so with owning your truth, it's an opportunity, of course, for you to share how you feel, share how it's shifted your perspective on life. I think my father being absent and the seasons where he popped in and popped out very much so reflects how I respond with and deal with people, right? So when people mimic or I get like a glimpse of his behavior through people, I'm very much so, I become a little bit more guarded, because I go back to, there was a time this person who acted in this way was in and out, and it caused me to just be unsure about what role I played in their life. So you want to own your truth, but also in owning your truth, you kind of have to acknowledge the facts, and you can't really hide from that. So you can't hide from that, and you can't run from that. If the goal is that you want healing and you want the relationship to be restored, you have to be able to acknowledge the facts. I think even to this day, the one area that my family struggles with, and even acknowledging, is that my father was an absent father. They don't mention that side of it, and I don't even think they like to hear me mention the side of that. But the truth of the matter is like, those are the facts, right? So it doesn't mean that he's a bad person. I even, like, at his funeral, everyone was like, he was a good man and he had good intentions and he would give you the shirt off his back. I believe all of those things that people said because they were able to see that side of him. For me personally, he was an absent father, and so I think owning the truth and acknowledging the facts, it has to be a part of your healing process if you want to be truly healed. Number three, so you also want to hear their version or their side of the story of what actually took place. And it may be the missing piece to your puzzle. So I know for me is that I never really understood like why he wasn't in the picture and why he had no desire to be in the picture. I felt like I was really involved as a child, and I was smart. I made good grades, and I was just in a lot of stuff. And so in my mind, you would be proud for someone like myself to have your last name and to carry your legacy. So it didn't really make sense to me, and there was a disconnect there because I never understood why. I don't even know that my father had ever really owned his truth and really processed why he wasn't involved or in the picture. But I think even him just acknowledging that he knew where he went wrong and what he would do differently, I think helped me be able to contribute that missing piece to my healing process, right? Because at the end of the day, I have a healing process. He would have his own individual healing process where he would have to go through forgiveness of himself. But that helped me move forward. So I think it's so important that you do hear their version, as sometimes hurtful as it may be in the moment. I think it will help you long term. Number 4, you want to be be willing to be the first to apologize. So if, as you hear their version of the story and it includes an area that you went wrong, or a statement that you made, or you recognize that it was somewhat you who pushed them away, I think it's important that you be willing to be the first to apologize, and hopefully they will follow suit. What you don't want to do is that you don't want to apologize with the hopes that they'll return with an apology. The goal is that your apology would be sincere enough that they understand what you're trying to accomplish. And the goal is that you want to heal that which is broken. So if it requires a sincere apology, you're willing to be the first to admit where you went wrong and to apologize for that behavior. And prayerfully, they will follow suit. But even if they don't, this is all about your healing process and your efforts to heal that which is broken. That was really good. Okay, number 5. At the end of the day, after this initial conversation, you want to leave it all on the table so that you can start fresh without hesitation. So at the end of the day, you want to leave it all on the table so that you can start fresh without hesitation. How many times have you felt like you've forgiven someone, or that you were over something, just to realize that, you know what, that still bothers me. The fact that you said this or did this still bothers me. So I think it's important that you leave it all on the table. And so it's perfectly fine for you to get out some of your frustration. Just make sure that you don't attack the person or their character in the process. So I hope that made sense to you all. I'm also going to chime in about why I believe that healing is personal. And I'm kind of talking about and incorporating my own experience with my father, who passed away July of this year. So why do I believe that healing is personal? Number one, because it has it's gonna affect you mentally if you choose not to take the steps towards healing. It's going to affect you mentally, and it could have more of an effect on you than that individual, because everyone processes things differently. So I think my father being absent, it had more of an effect on me because I grew up without him in the picture than it actually had on him. And I think the hard part for me in regards to my father is that my father, he got married and they had a son, and so it was really hard seeing him be so involved and engaged with his son, my brother. It was really hard to see that and to witness that, and to be in support of that. But me shifting my perspective and wanting to really make sure that I'm not harboring unforgiveness or even any sense of jealousy, I think what I had to come to terms with is that I think my father being absent in my life and my sister's life, and we grew up and we went to college and we just now we're adults, living our life. I think he saw how much he missed out on by not being involved and not being engaged, and not being in the picture. And so it caused him to not miss a beat with his son. He was at everything. He was involved with everything. He signed up for everything. He would take off work to attend things. And so I didn't have that and did not know that side of him. So I think number one reason why healing is personal is because it will affect you mentally, because you will literally go through this journey of just somewhat blame or placing the blame on yourself. And so I think that number one, you need to not just desire healing, but seek healing, because it's going to benefit you in the long run. So healing will affect you mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I think it's so important that you be in control of your mental state, your emotional state, and of course you just physically, just because it's important and it's necessary. Number two, if it challenges you, it changes you. And I think not just the disconnect, but even just since his passing, and if you read the blog, which the link is in the bio, the day of my father's funeral, his family was not very receptive of my sister and I being in attendance to his funeral. And I'll be honest, initially that hurt, because I couldn't figure out what I had did to them. This is a side of the family that hasn't been involved in my life, wouldn't know me on a personal level. And I think my sister and I wanted to attend his funeral, even though the relationship wasn't an ideal father-daughter relationship. I think we went because I knew that if I didn't go, it would have a major effect on me later on down the road. So I would feel some sort of guilt, and I wouldn't be able to fully heal or process or grieve appropriately because I didn't allow myself to go and to push past my fear of being in attendance. I didn't know that going would cause the family to respond so negatively towards us. But again, what I've learned is that if it challenges you, it changes you. And I think what it helps me do is just shift my perspective and see that sometimes it's not you. It's simply people. So we know that hurt people, right? So broken people are typically hurt people. And I think sometimes them seeing me, them looking at me being in their presence was a just constant reminder of their fault as well, right? Of not being engaged and not being in our life. And so it wasn't me personally that they wanted to attack. It was simply that them seeing me caused them to think back about where their flaws and where they went wrong as well. And so I think that it's so important for you to keep that in mind and not take it personal, even though that's kind of hard not to do in the moment. So in the moment, I definitely was taking it personal, and it definitely made me feel some kind of way. It wasn't until I was able to remove myself from the situation that I could fully process why they would have acted the way that they did. Remember that if it challenges you, it changes you, and most of the time it changes you for the better. Because if you read the blog, I talk about how broken people aren't always toxic, right? Broken people have toxic behavior traits and toxic characteristics, but the person is not always toxic, and that's something that you have to remember and keep in mind. But number 3, why I believe that healing is personal is because only you know what helps you. So I wrote a blog, and I included, of course, my sister because we were there together. But honestly speaking, like, my healing journey and her healing journey, they look very different because our relationship and our perspective is also very different. So no one else can really tell you what's going to work best for you. Of course, people can give you pointers and tips and recommend books and counseling, and all of those things are great. I think I'm a big advocate for all of those things. But just remember that only you know what can help you. So extend yourself some grace. Walk this thing out, of course, by faith, and just know that it may not even make sense initially, but just know that progress is being made. So continue to extend yourself grace, which is what I had to kind of remind myself, is just keep extending myself grace. As you all can see, my shirt says, hold on, let me come back a little. It says, be good to yourself and inspire others. And that's honestly what I try to do on the daily and what I try to do through this process, because I recognize if I don't stay in control of my emotions will control me and affect how I respond to things and people and how I treat people. And even how I receive that which people are trying to do, even people that are trying to do good towards me. So keep all of that in mind. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am signing out.